Welcome to this episode of the story. Subscribe as soon as possible. Chapter 9. The Shield of Medusa. The beginning of memory surveillance. On the bronze mirror surface in the Ramon Forum, Arya's terrified face was reflected. Instinctively, she reached out to touch her temple, only to see the scene of her secret meeting with the rebels from last night emerging in the ripples of the mirror. The church's memory surveillance device was accessing her subconscious. Citizen Arya, there are abnormal fluctuations in your memory. The mirror suddenly emitted a mechanical voice. The memory guards patrolling nearby immediately turned around. Please cooperate with the church's memory purification procedure. The girl shrieked and stepped back, knocking over a stall filled with fruits and vegetables. In her ears echoed the warning from the leader of the Star Guardians 3 days ago. The shields of Medusa are not just mirrors. They're the church's memory, siphoning devices implanted in Rome. Remember, Archimedes' formula is the key to everything. Before the words were finished, a guard's memory scythe pierced her shoulder. In the underground workshop of the Memory Cathedral, Archimedes was wiping a newly polished bronze mirror. Complex mathematical formulas were engraved on the mirror's edge. What seemed like decorative patterns were actually resistance codes written in geometric language. When he finished the 10th mirror, he suddenly sensed a familiar scent behind him, the fragrance of his daughter, whose memory had been erased by the church 3 years ago. "Father, what are you doing?" The girl's voice came from the shadows. She wore the church's gear emblem around her neck, and her eyes were as empty as stagnant water. These mirrors will help the church purify humanity's impure memories, right? Archimedes' hand trembled violently, and the mirror dropped, hitting his instep. In his real memory, his daughter had died in an accident at the age of 7. The daughter in front of him was merely a memory illusion implanted in his subconscious by the church. Looking at the cold sweat on his forehead reflected in the mirror, he knew it was a scar left by the burning of the memory furnace. He had been burned by the church's memory energy while protecting his wife, and his wife's last memory was sewn into Raven's scarf. "Yes, purifying memories," he said, regaining his composure as he turned around. His fingertips gently caressed the pi symbol on the mirror's edge, the first key he left for the rebels. "These mirrors will make Rome an eternal city of light." Aiden's pendant suddenly grew hot. Hiding in the shadows of the memory graveyard, she watched as the blood-written word Delta Omega Gia Micron Nu on her wrist glowed faintly. Every time she used the pendant's ability, she would briefly assume the perspective of the Queen of Atlantis. At this moment, instead of scenes of destruction, she saw Archimedes engraving formulas in the workshop. "Be careful of mirror neuron resonance," Raven's voice came through the communicator. Another feather fell from his raven-patterned scarf, revealing a newly added burn scar beneath. The shields of Medusa can create illusions based on people's fear memories. My wife was executed by the church after seeing memory fragments of her miscarriage in the mirror. Aiden pressed the pendant. The moment the judgment mode was activated, the memory graveyard in front of her distorted into the scene of the Roman Forum. She saw thousands of bronze mirrors floating in the air, each reflecting different people's memory remnants. Some saw their future execution by the church in the mirror, while others saw the false happiness implanted in their childhood. "Look at this," Raven said, pulling up an encrypted video. In the footage, Archimedes was showing the mirror device to the young Caesar. The surface of these mirrors isn't plated with mercury. It's Atlantean memory metal, which can convert human subconscious into bioelectrical energy. Aiden's pendant suddenly flew off her necklace and stuck to the nearest memory storage tank. A projection of a medieval torture device appeared on the tank's surface, and she heard Archimedes' voice from the past. The first 7 digits after the decimal point of pi are the first key to unlocking the memory shackles. The tank cracked open, revealing a bronze fragment engraved with the value of pi. Meanwhile, in Rome's memory surveillance center, High Priest Octavian watched the red dots flickering. 19 coordinates in the forum area, he said, waving his arm. Memory threads condensed into an arrow in his palm. Use fear memories to incite the mob and let them watch their own rebellious consciousness being harvested. Arya was pushed in front of the mirror, with a guard's memory scythe at her throat. The onlookers suddenly fell silent. Reflected in their pupils were the illusions generated by the mirror. Arya had turned into a hydra, strangling Roman citizens with memory chains. "That's not true," Arya screamed, only to see her palm turn into snake scales in the mirror. The crowd started throwing stones, and the church's memory resonance device hummed, converting the collective fear into a tangible energy wave. When Archimedes arrived, all he saw were broken mirrors all over the ground and the girl's cold body. He picked up a shard of glass and saw the scar on his forehead distorted into the church's gear symbol in the mirror. As the guard's memory scythe swung towards him, he suddenly remembered the memory feather his wife had given him before her death. It was sewn with the memory fragments of their unborn child and the star chart coordinates of Atlantis. Pi equals 3.1415926. He wrote the formula in a pool of blood. The mirror shard suddenly shattered all at once, releasing the resistance code he had hidden within the mathematical constant. Aiden witnessed this in the memory graveyard. The No. 79 etched number at the bottom of the pendant overlapped with the cracks in the mirror, forming a complete Atlantean totem. He used the infinite, non-repeating nature of pi to create an unbreakable memory encryption protocol, Raven said with respect. Each mirror is a node, and pi is the general formula that runs through all nodes. Aiden touched the storage tank, and blue memory, like tears, suddenly converged into a stream, lifting up a yellowed movie ticket stub. She heard the countdown to the millennium, and simultaneously saw the last symbol engraved by Archimedes on the mirror. It was the blood. Written word, Delta Omega G Omicron Nu, on her mother's hand, which represented 79 in Roman numerals. The ground of the memory graveyard shook, and the door of the memory hearse in the distance suddenly opened. Aiden saw that the hearse was filled with dying memories, and a mathematical formula on a piece of parchment was glowing. It was a gift from Archimedes to the future, and also a fatal flaw in the church's memory surveillance system. They think they're monitoring memories, Raven said, lighting a memory-infused cigarette. The smoke traced the outline of a star chart in the air. In fact, they're building a bridge for our resistance. Aiden clenched the pendant, and the Queen's battle memories surged like a heat wave. She saw that on the night Atlantis sank, the same bronze mirrors were harvesting the consciousness of its people, and Archimedes' ancestor was the scientist who had shut down the memory furnace back then. On the next full moon, she said, looking at her amber-colored pupils reflected in the mirror, in which were the reflections of countless monitored souls. We'll resonate at the frequency of pi and let all of Rome see the church's truth. Octavian suddenly twitched in the monitoring room. He saw the same symbol pi appear simultaneously on all the mirrors. In the citizens' memories, which were supposed to be pure, resistance declarations written in mathematical formulas began to surface. The first to crack the key was the clone he had personally implanted with false memories 3 years ago. Sample No. 79. Impossible, he muttered, looking at the blue cracks spreading in the mirror, which were the signs of the fountain of memory surging underground. How could they know that the loophole in the star chart is hidden in the most perfect mathematical constant? Suddenly, Arya's body opened its eyes, and golden light from Atlantis flowed in its pupils. She picked up the mirror shard engraved with the value of pi by Archimedes from the pool of blood. The shard cut her finger, and the blood drew the formation of memory resonance on the ground. The same scene Aiden would see in the memory graveyard 2,000 years later. This episode ends here. The next episode will be even more exciting. Come and subscribe.